Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi everyone. May the peace and blessings of Allah be upon you all, and welcome to the Ahmadiyya Muslim Students Association's second event of the new year, Women in Islam, a talk and question and answer session with the respected Maha Dabbous. Before we get into the main session, I'd like to take a moment to introduce the Ahmadiyya Muslim community, our beliefs and principles. The Ahmadiyya Muslim community is a fast-growing international revival movement within Islam, whose adherents number into the tens of millions. It was founded by Mirza Ghulam Ahmad of Qadian, peace be upon him, who claimed to be that promised Messiah and divine reformer that is awaited by Islam and in fact all major religions. The community's motto is love for all, hatred for none, and it is this spirit of peacefulness and tolerance that we emphasize is true to the original teachings of Islam, as taught by the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. Mirza Ghulam Ahmad, the founder of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community, taught that a jihad by the pen that was aggressive in nature has never had any place in Islam, and that in this day and age he commissioned a jihad by the pen, that is to defend Islam through intellectual arguments, reasoning and dialogue, all based on authentic Islamic source material. And this is what we hope, God willing, to do today. The subject of today's talk seems to be endlessly topical. There is so often a debate in the media about whether Muslim women are oppressed, or a headline that this member of government from that country wants to ban hijab, that Saudi Arabia have reaffirmed their ban on women driving, and so on and so forth. However, in the past 2 months or so, one story seems to have dominated the headlines, and that is the story of Malala Yousafzai, a 15-year-old Pakistani school student, who has for years been an outspoken critic of the Taliban and an advocate for women's educational rights, since the Taliban had tried to ban education in the Swat district of Pakistan from which she hails. Her growing international prominence, however, led to the Taliban attempting to assassinate her on the 9th of October as she returned home on a school bus. She was flown to the Queen Elizabeth Hospital in Birmingham, where she is now recovering, after having had a bullet extracted from her shoulder near her spinal cord. It was her inspiring story in particular which we felt brought this issue, as well as the issue of extremism, rather acutely into the public eye. Extremism we hope to have addressed adequately in our last talk, which is now available online. But today we want to focus on what are the true Islamic teachings on the issue of women's rights and equality. To try and avoid any sectarian differences, the talk will be based purely on the verses of the Qur'an, so as to make it accessible to all and to give a universal platform for Muslims and non-Muslims alike to base their understanding on. Our respected speaker this evening to deliver the talk and answer your questions is Maha Dabbous. She is a published author on the subject and a highly respected and always very well received speaker on the topic. For the last 20 years or so, she has been working at the Fazl Mosque, the first ever mosque in London, translating into Arabic the various discourses and commentaries of the spiritual leaders or khulafa of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community. We are very grateful to have her here, and without further ado, we'd like to invite our respected speaker to take the stage and begin this evening's event.
In the name of Allah, the most gracious, ever merciful, I greet you all with the greeting of Islam. Assalamu alaikum. Peace be on you. First, I want to thank you all for giving your time to attend this lecture, and I hope and pray that it will be one that is interesting and informative for you all. For many people in our present time, when the two words women and Islam are mentioned in one phrase, the word oppression comes to mind. I fully agree that the major part of the blame for this wrong impression lies upon those mistaken Muslims who misinterpret the teachings of their own religion and distort its beautiful image by their actions. However, if someone disobeys a law and commits a crime, it is not right to blame that law for the unjust act. Similarly, Islam should not be accused on account of the wrong notions and practices of any uninformed followers. Also, Islam must not be blamed for what some non-Muslims think of it, especially when its teachings are in complete opposition to these wrong ideas. The best way to judge Islam is to study its true teachings, which are presently still preserved in the Holy Qur'an. with its pure text remaining in its original form. And this is what I hope to carry out today. Let us first start with the subject of the oppression of women. With even a casual glance into the history of mankind, one will come to know that women had been exploited and subjected to cruelty and oppression since the dawn of civilization, long before the advent of Islam. But despite its very long history, this issue was brought to light in Europe only very recently, when some feminist organizations started to publicize the subject. And even with their efforts, we can still witness women being oppressed today. As for the question of the oppression of women by Islam, of course, as a Muslim, I will deny these convictions, and I will say that the teachings of Islam do not oppress women. Otherwise, how could I have accepted and tolerated this oppression upon myself, and why would I be standing here today to support it? The Holy Qur'an teaches us there should be no compulsion in religion. So any lady who is following the teachings of Islam must be doing this willingly, without compulsion. This immediately refutes any suggestion that Islam oppresses women, because freedom of choice and oppression cannot exist simultaneously. But still someone can think that maybe Muslim ladies are so oppressed to the extent that they are not even aware of it. And naturally this can prevent them from any rebellion against Islam. So the only way to prove the truth of what I'm claiming is to give some illustrations from the source of all Islamic teachings, the Holy Qur'an. Let us now go back in time to the year 610 AD. This was the year when the verses of the Holy Qur'an started to be revealed to the Holy Prophet of Islam, whose blessed name was Muhammad, peace and blessings of Allah be upon him. What was the condition of women at that time in the land of Arabia? Women were considered to be the property of men, existing just for their service and pleasure. They were even inherited as part of the possessions of the deceased males. Treated without any honor or respect, they were looked upon as a symbol of disgrace, to the extent that some fathers were so humiliated by the news of the birth of a daughter that they mercilessly buried these baby daughters alive. This attitude towards women was not only confined to the land of Arabia. In other parts of the known world of that time, similar atrocities were carried out against women. Of course, in individual cases, some women managed to obtain social positions that enabled them to enjoy various privileges and live a life free from this degraded state. But this was not a genuine license, because it was earned and not granted to them by way of right. At that time, no religion or law of state afforded to women any constitutional rights that could be legally put into practice. With the revelation of the Holy Qur'an, women were instantly liberated from all these injustices that caused them to suffer silently for thousands of years. The teachings of Islam included a complete set of rules concerning women. All their rights were declared and fully secured and immediately implemented. The result was complete transformation in attitude regarding women. Instead of being the inferior possessions of men, women were granted a comprehensive law to share inheritance with males. While ownership of property was established for women, men were no longer allowed to use the possessions of women without their consent. The Holy Qur'an secured women's financial maintenance under all circumstances. Even if women owned property or earned regular income, it was to be the duty of men to support them financially. Inappropriate behavior of men towards women was no longer tolerated under any circumstances, and ladies were granted the right to make legal complaints in the court of justice. In matrimonial relationships, the rights of the wife were established. Her consent became a necessary requirement for the marriage to take place. Her husband's good treatment to her was an essential obligation for the continuation of the marriage. Otherwise, she was entitled to divorce. If divorce took place, the financial security of the wife was to be realized. If they had children, they would be left with the mother until a certain age, while their financial maintenance was to be the responsibility of the father alone. The rights of widows were also established. The education of females was promoted, and women were allowed to become active individuals in the society. All this might seem normal and standard human rights today, but this becomes marvelous and amazing when we know that these very same Islamic rights for women were still not recognized by the civil laws of the states of the world, even after the passage of more than 1,000 years. Just as an example, the rights of a woman to inherit or to be recognized as the owner of her own property were established in parts of Europe very recently, as late as the 20th century. The same applies to the rights of a woman to end her marriage by divorce. But the Holy Qur'an has granted these same rights to women 13 centuries earlier, at a time when humanity's attitude towards women was completely opposed to it. Islam has secured these human rights to women without even a single woman having to fight or struggle or raise a voice for this to be achieved. These rights were not only declared and established, but they were also immediately implemented through the instructions and practice of the Holy Prophet of Islam himself, peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, leaving no room for speculation or distortion. But that is not all. Beside the financial and social rights, women's spiritual status was also established. The Holy Qur'an proclaimed absolute spiritual equality between men and women, declaring that the same spiritual ranks were attainable by both alike. The Holy Qur'an declared, "Whoso acts righteously, whether male or female, and is a believer, we will surely grant him a pure life, and we will surely bestow on such their reward according to the best of their works." In the eyes of God Almighty, both men and women were equal. No longer could men state that they were superior to women. No longer could men forcefully dominate or mercilessly dictate. This has all come to an end, as God proclaimed in the Holy Qur'an. "O mankind, we have created you from a male and a female, and we have made you into tribes and sub-tribes, that you may recognize one another. Verily, the most honorable among you in the sight of Allah is he who is the most righteous among you. Surely Allah is all-knowing, all-aware." But this is still not all. So far, I have only mentioned the civilizing injunctions of Islam that were recognized by the rest of the world after more than 1300 years. But there are still other privileges and civil liberties that Islam has granted to women by way of right, and that are still not recognized by any other civil law in the world outside the domain of Islam, even in our present time. Of course, I intend to illustrate this by citing some examples, but before doing so, it is necessary to define the role of women in the Islamic society as presented in the Holy Qur'an. To carry out this, it will be essential to introduce first a wider scope to identify the purpose of the creation of human beings. According to the Holy Qur'an, God has created everything with a purpose, not only living creatures, but also all other inanimate creations have a purpose for existence. When we consider any object for creation and study its role in life and its function in the world, we will be amazed to see how this object is perfectly fulfilling the purpose of its existence. We will never find any of these creations refusing to do the job that it was created for. For example, who can ever say that the sun has purposely refused to supply the earth and its inhabitants with its light and warmth? Or who can ever claim that a tree has deliberately declined yielding its fruits to benefit living creatures? Each one of these creations of God is fulfilling a purpose for its existence in exactly the same manner that it was meant to be. Even in the animal kingdom, we see the same. Animals act according to their natural instincts, and by doing so, they accomplish the purpose of their life on earth. We never see these creations of God abusing their natural gifts. The only exceptions to this rule are humans. Human beings are granted the freedom of choice. For this, their decisions and actions they can choose it. If they make wrong decisions, they can abuse and waste any of their faculties and talents, which can lead them to ruin. On the other hand, if they make right decisions and choose to fulfill the sacred purpose of their existence, they can attain the loftiest of spiritual ranks that cannot be reached even by the angels of God. But what is this purpose? According to the Holy Qur'an, God created human beings with the capacity to reflect His attributes in order to fulfill their role of being His representatives on earth. Therefore, every person's goal ought to be the moral development that enables one to manifest these divine attributes in one's own self, in an attempt to become an image of the Creator. This results in the elevation of the spiritual state of that person so as to gain nearness to God. It is an endless spiritual journey because the more one reflects the divine attributes, the closer that person is drawn towards God. And the nearer one approaches God, the more the divine attributes are reflected in that person. This continues as an endless progression as long as the person continues to strive on this path. This objective is something that cannot be accomplished by other creations of God. Only human beings were gifted with the ability to attain these lofty spiritual ranks. To enable them to achieve this, God has been sending His prophets in every land and at all times. Their duty was to convey His guidance in the form of religious teachings, which, if followed, can lead human beings to attain their spiritual destination. The summit of all these religious teachings was reached in Islam, which presents the complete and final law from God to mankind. Of course, these teachings are meant to be followed by both men and women alike, as they are both gifted with capacities to reach the same spiritual ranks. But in the same time, we notice subtle distinctions in the guidance concerning men and the guidance concerning women, because of the physical differences between males and females. These differences cause natural distinctions in their roles in life. For example, as men are bodily stronger than women, it is natural to see that men around the world usually perform the tasks that require strenuous and outdoor activities. But this does not in any way degrade the position of women, because they have their own sphere of responsibilities as well. As men appear outwardly stronger, women's strengths come from within. They are usually drawn to the tasks that involve the home and the family. They enjoy organizing and managing family affairs. Because of their capacity to give birth and nurture their offspring, they are gifted with the ability to devote themselves to looking after others with true unconditional love and care. In addition to this, they possess the skills of upbringing and education and training. Women instinctively discharge these vital, significant duties towards the members of their families without having to be reminded of it. For this reason, we do not find such instructions in the Holy Qur'an that tell women to do these jobs. This is because the Holy Qur'an does not include commands to perform acts that are done by people instinctively. But, on the other hand, it gives instructions to guide people to the right way of doing these actions, so as to benefit themselves spiritually. For example, the Holy Qur'an does not order people to eat and drink, because people naturally eat and drink. Yet it gives guidance concerning what should be consumed and what should not, to teach them how to use these natural instincts to gain spiritual benefits. Likewise, the Holy Qur'an does not instruct women to fulfill their family duties, because they do this naturally anyway. Yet it gives them guidance on how to use these natural inclinations to achieve spiritual objectives for themselves and others as well. The Holy Qur'an enlightens us in this regard, where Allah guides women by saying, "And settle in your homes with dignity, and do not show off yourselves like the showing off of the former days of ignorance, and observe prayer and pay the zakah, and obey Allah and His Messenger. Surely Allah desires to remove from you all uncleanness, O members of the household, and purify you completely." It is assumed by some people that the first part of this verse orders women to remain permanently at home. But this verse does not tell women to stay at home and never go out. It says, settle in your homes, which points to the necessity of establishing the home and making it a source of comfort for peaceful living. In this, there is an indication that some instructions will follow concerning women's home duties. So this verse does not prohibit women from going out and does not forbid women from getting education to the highest degrees and does not ban women from having jobs outside their homes. All this is naturally allowed in Islam for any woman who chooses to do so. This verse has something else to say. It establishes a spiritual role for women that goes in line with their natural inclinations and skills. We notice here that God did not say to women to stay at home to do the cooking or the cleaning or any other domestic work. He did not even tell them to stay at home to look after the husbands and raise the children. He plainly commanded them to settle in their homes and to observe the teachings of Islam and to follow the guidance of God and His holy messenger. Peace and blessings of Allah be upon him. So what does this mean? It means that managing the affairs of the family is not the ultimate purpose for encouraging women to settle in their homes. There is a greater objective that is revealed in the verse that follows this one. In it, God directs women by saying, "And remember what is rehearsed in your homes of the signs of Allah and of the wisdom. Verily Allah is the knower of subtleties, all aware." Here a final role for women is revealed. Their responsibility in the management of the household affairs and their care and education for the members of their families is not meant to be taken only in the physical sense. It is also to benefit them spiritually. At this point, I need to bring this subject to a short pause while I can touch upon spirituality in Islam. The Holy Qur'an teaches us that our existence in this world includes our body and our soul. The body is our physical existence, and the soul represents our spiritual entity. Once we die, our physical body will disintegrate and we will be left only with our spiritual existence, which will continue to live in a different form. So it is essential that before leaving our present world, we must secure a good life for our spiritual entity. Otherwise, we will suffer a state of agony after death. A blissful spiritual life can only be guaranteed by attaining to a lofty station that is close to our Creator, who is the source of all peace. And as explained earlier, we can secure our nearness to God by following His guidance that He conveyed to us through His prophets. In other words, our peaceful spiritual life can be attained through the proper conduct of our physical life. God ordained that our physical state is strongly connected to our moral and spiritual states. Body and soul are interwoven. Each one of them affects the other. Therefore, any physical condition or action will have its effect on the soul. For example, when a Muslim prostrates, the physical body does the action, but the soul is affected as well, because prostration fosters the person's humility and obedience to God. This connection can be seen in all the obligatory physical practices that a Muslim is supposed to perform. From this, we understand that all the teachings of Islam that are to be observed by the physical body are actually meant to elevate the spiritual status. That is to say that our life on earth encompasses the means by which we can arrive at our desired spiritual destination. This can be achieved if we use these means in the way that was prescribed by our Creator in the Holy Qur'an. As the ultimate purpose of the Quranic injunctions is the spiritual progress of the soul, its teachings are meant to employ all the natural urges of a person to fulfill one's spiritual objectives. Some human inclinations can have dangerous effects on oneself if they go out of control, which can lead to the loss of moral values and destroy the spiritual qualities altogether. But if these natural inclinations are subjected to the control of the divine law, they become moral values, and then they enhance the spiritual condition of that person. By understanding this fundamental point, the spiritual benefits of observing all the Islamic teachings can be easily realized. After this brief explanation, let us now return to the Quranic verses that we were discussing earlier. As previously observed, these verses indicate that the ultimate purpose of the duties of women is to attain spiritual objectives. As women follow these instructions, they purify their souls and learn how to use the provisions available to them to enlighten themselves and others with spiritual knowledge and wisdom. The verses end with the reminder of the limitless knowledge and awareness of God, to encourage ladies to reflect these divine attributes in themselves and continue in their determination to acquire knowledge. According to these Quranic verses, Muslim women have been assigned the responsibility of the spiritual education and upbringing of the society. Now, for women to be teachers of the community, it is essential that they acquire a wide range of knowledge first, not only in religious matters, but in other fields in general. This fact refutes the wrong assertion that Islam prevents females from acquiring knowledge and forbids girls' education. The Holy Quran never distinguished between males and females in their rights for this privilege. On the other hand, there are particular instructions for the education of females to repel the discrimination that prevailed as a result of customs and traditions. So if these customs still exist among some communities today, it will be not right to blame Islam for it, especially when the teachings of Islam came to dispose of such habits. The Holy Prophet of Islam, peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, has repeatedly emphasized the importance of the sacred duties of women in the society. He gave a lot of guidance in this regard, and he particularly encouraged the education of girls, possibly seeing in them the future teachers of the community. This is further endorsed by the early history of Islam, when after his departure from this world, Muslims acquired a large amount of information and knowledge from his wives, especially as-Sayyida Aisha, may Allah be pleased with her, who was the main source for their education and training. As God entrusted women with a number of vital responsibilities, He also provided for them the means that will help them accomplish their duties with ease. For this reason, we find that the verses of the Holy Quran granted women a number of special privileges by way of rights. As mentioned earlier, these privileges have not been paralleled in any other of the civil laws of the world, even in our present time. I have chosen 3 of these privileges to discuss today. The first is mentioned in the Quranic declaration. Men are guardians over women. This declaration is very much misunderstood, even by some Muslims. It is wrongly assumed that it means that men are superior to women, and that it promotes the dictatorship of men over women. This is not so. The true meaning of this declaration can be understood when we read it together with the next part of the same verse. In it, God says, "Men are guardians over women because Allah has made some of them excel others, and because they, the men, spend of their wealth." We must pay attention here to the phrase, Allah has made some of them excel others. It does not say that Allah has made men excel women. It clearly says that Allah has made some of them excel others. This means that men surpass women in some aspects and women surpass men in other aspects. Therefore, one is not superior to the other. As mentioned in the Holy Quran, before that, we mentioned that the most honorable among males and females is the one who is most righteous. So if men are not superior to women, what is the meaning of them being guardians over women? The answer is found in the same verse in the phrase, because they spend of their wealth. The guardianship of men has here means that it talks about their duties to provide the financial necessities for women. Here men are reminded of their responsibilities towards women. As guardians, they must protect and provide for women so as to secure an easy and peaceful life for them, that will enable women to fulfill their sacred duties in the best possible way. The Holy Qur'an teaches that a woman is not responsible for financial provisions of the family, even if she happens to earn money through work or any other means. She is not bound to use this income to support her family financially, unless, of course, she willingly chooses to do so. Also, the spending of wealth mentioned here in this verse can refer to other meanings beside financial payments. For example, it can indicate spending knowledge and advice. In this case, the meaning will be that as guardians, men must continue to offer the necessary advice and support to women that will help their continuous advancement and protect them from drifting away from the right course of progress. The righteousness of women is a very important factor in the formation of an upright society. Upon them depends the welfare of the new generation and the progress of the society as a whole. This is why God has assigned to men the duty of providing the facilities and the protection and also the right advice and assistance for women that will secure their progress towards their target. So to some extent we can say here that in this respect God has directed men to be at the service of women, to protect them and help them attain spiritual loftiness, because on this depends their own advancement as well as the society as a whole. This is what is implied in the Quranic proclamation, men are guardians over women. The guardianship of men is not to indicate their superiority over women, but it is to illustrate their care and concern for women. Women are by nature delicate in their physical structure and mental fabric, and they need special care and protection. It is important here to emphasize that the protection provided by men does not mean their superiority over women. On the contrary, this underlines the importance of the role of women in the society, who need to enjoy the peaceful atmosphere that will enable them to give full attention to the performance of their duties. And if men are meant to protect women in this area, women are also required to provide men with protection in different fields. Women's protection for men comes from within. This is also indicated in the same verse that mentioned the guardianship of men over women. In the following part of the verse, God says, "So virtuous women are those who are obedient and guard the secrets with Allah's protection." It is the duty of women to protect the honor of men and to keep their secrets from being exposed. So as men protect women, women also protect men. Yet, as any organization needs a head to manage its affairs, the family also needs an allocated leader. According to the teachings of Islam, the husband is the appointed head of the family. But again, this does not by any means degrade the wife's position. If the husband is the head, the wife is the heart of that family, without whom no life can be sustained. As a matter of fact, the roles of both husband and wife are equally vital for the healthy survival and prosperity of the family and the society as a whole. It is obvious that a body can neither survive without a head, nor can it live without a heart. This is the same relationship between husband and wife in the family. Their joint efforts are needed to form an ideal family and to produce a perfect society. This means that men and women complement one another and must strive mutually to act upon the divine commandments for the sake of their prosperity and success. The Holy Qur'an says, "So their Lord answered their prayers, saying, I will allow not the work of any worker from among you, whether male or female, to be lost. You are from one another." So the phrase "you are from one another" reminds us that men and women complement one another, and for the achievement of any positive results, both men and women need to carry out their share of responsibilities, as the blessed results will be acquired only by their joint efforts. Now back to our subject. We have seen that the Holy Qur'an has secured the protection and necessary provisions of women through appointing men as their caring guardians. This privilege that Islam has granted to women was not granted by way of right in any other institution, whether secular or religious. Another special privilege that Islam has bestowed upon women is one that secures a family life for every female in the community. This is mentioned in the Holy Qur'an in more than one verse. In one of these verses, God instructs the Muslim man as follows: "And if you fear that you will not be fair in dealing with the orphans, then marry of women as may be agreeable to you, 2 or 3 or 4. This is the verse that deals with the subject of polygamy. There is a misconception here about Islam that it insults women by allowing men to marry more than one wife. But what is forgotten here is that Islam has not actually introduced polygamy. Before Islam, men could marry as many wives as they wished. Islam has come to limit this number of wives. In other words, Islam has come to regulate polygamy in favor of women and to put it under control so that this license will not be abused by men while its productive effects can continue to be benefited from. Now, what are these benefits? The verse just mentioned tells us about this. It highlights the importance of providing marriage to all ladies in the community. This is understood when we realize that according to the Arabic lexicons, the Arabic word yatama, that is usually translated as orphans, as in this verse, it can also mean ladies without husbands in general, and in particular, the girls who never married before. So the verse calls upon men to secure marriages for women who have no husbands. If this is not possible to achieve, then the Holy Qur'an gives this license to men to marry more than one wife, with the maximum of 4. This is to ensure that no lady will be left without marriage in the community. Now, this is another instance of a very much misunderstood injunction of the Holy Qur'an. It is believed by many that this injunction is favoring men and allowing them to use women for their own pleasure. This is far from being the case. First of all, if we ponder upon the words of this verse, we will find that it is giving the reasons for allowing polygamy. The verse does not say to men, if you want to enjoy life, then marry more than one wife. And it does not tell them, if you are not satisfied with one wife, then go and marry another. Nothing about the interests of men is mentioned here. The verse plainly advises men that if for any reason there is an imbalance in the society that makes it not possible to secure marriage for all marriageable ladies, then men should marry more than one wife to remove the unevenness and solve the problem. As a matter of fact, for a pious, righteous man, marrying more than one wife is a huge burden. This is because for a man who decides to marry more than one wife, God has put some conditions to fulfill the duties for them to fulfill and duties to perform. These requirements are so difficult and hard to fulfill that it becomes very demanding on a man to accomplish them. So for a pious man who wants to obey these commandments and please his Creator, it becomes a huge burden on him to marry more than one wife. But if essential, the Muslim man will have to opt for this solution to ensure that every woman is protected by a family life of her own. Yet, as God knows that this is a very delicate matter and that it is difficult to handle in a proper manner, He has made it clear that this option is only to be employed by men who are capable of providing full justice between wives. God made this clear in the same verse that was just quoted. After giving the license to men to marry up to 4 wives, God says, "And if you fear you will not deal justly, then marry one only one." So this is a real challenge. Men are told in this verse that if they fear that a situation will arise in the community where some ladies will be left without marriage, then it will be their duty to marry more than one wife, to remove the problem and provide a family life for these women. But on the other hand, if some men would fear that they will not be able to deal justly with their wives, then these men are by divine command not allowed to marry more than one wife. So this license in Islam is to be used with very special care and reservation by men. Otherwise, instead of benefiting individuals and the community in general, a man might end his spiritual progress and draw the displeasure of God upon himself. Now, although the verse mentioned here referred to all ladies without husband, the Holy Qur'an still gives another special instruction in this regard, where God instructs Muslim men by saying, "And marry the widows from among you." Here again, it must be stated that according to the Arabic lexicons, the Arabic word ayama, which is translated here as widows, gives the general meaning of women who were married previously but are now without husband. God has given this special instruction because in some societies, widows and divorced women are looked down upon, to the extent that their chances of marriage can become very slim. This is one reason why the Holy Quran has given particular mention to them in this verse. So it becomes clear that the Holy Quran gives very special attention to securing the marriage of all ladies in the community. From this we realize the importance of marriage in Islam. We have seen earlier that the teachings of the Holy Quran have secured financial and other provisions for ladies by employing men to be their caring guardians. This grants women the peace of mind that enables them to focus on accomplishing more important obligations with ease. But women have also other needs that can only be fulfilled through marriage. For this reason, the Holy Quran has given these commandments to guarantee that the natural and mental and emotional needs of every female in the community are fulfilled. Of course, there are other reasons for allowing polygamy in Islam, some of which are in the interests of men also. But the remarkable point to note here is that the only one reason that was mentioned in the Holy Quran for allowing polygamy is the one which takes care of the interests of the ladies by securing a safe haven for every single woman in the community. This displays the high esteem bestowed upon women by the Holy Quran. It teaches that women must be respected, protected, and cared for. They should not be left to face the harshness of life on their own, while others just pity them and do nothing to help them. Islamic teachings are designed by God to free women from even the slightest troubles and worries, to grant them the peace of mind and the emotional stability that enables them to advance in their spiritual development. Now I will proceed to the third privilege that Islam has bestowed upon women. And again, this is a third instance of a very much misunderstood injunction of Islam. By this I refer, of course, to the Islamic veil. It is evident that in our present time, many people are not aware of the true objectives of the Islamic veil. They believe that Islam burdens women by instructing them to wear the veil that restricts their freedom and causes them to be isolated from the society. But contrary to this wrong impression, the Islamic veil is actually the means of securing several types of freedom for women. As a matter of fact, the veil itself is a proof that Islam does not isolate women or confine them to their homes. We have to bear in mind that the veil is not required to be observed by a Muslim woman inside her home, where only her husband or other members of her direct family are present. She is only required to observe the veil when in the presence of outsiders. And by outsiders here, I mean those who are outside the circle of her direct family members. This is, of course, the situation that is more likely to happen outside the home. So if Islam confines women, Muslim women, to their homes and isolates them from the outside world, then these Quranic instructions concerning the veil will be deemed unnecessary and redundant. Therefore, the very fact that these teachings of the veil are found in the Holy Quran, this proves that Islam definitely allows women to go out and interact in the society, and also to participate in different activities, whether it is education or work or any other legitimate act. But in doing so, a Muslim woman is required to shield herself by observing the Islamic veil, which does not only concern her outer dress, but also provides the necessary guidelines for the manners of dealing with outsiders. In this way, she will be fully protected from exposure to any menace that she might come across in the world outside her home. It is important here to remember that the veiling of the women is not something that Islam has invented. The earlier revealed religions has taught women to be modest in their dress and to cover their heads. We can see the traces of this even today. For example, in the dress of the Christian nuns who cover their heads and wear modest clothes. We can also see it in the fact that religious Jewish ladies cover their heads, if not with a scarf, then with a wig. The same is the case with the traditional dress of Hindu ladies. This is evidence that their respective religions taught them to veil their bodies and heads in a certain manner. As the final religion, Islam has come to complete and perfect the previous teachings concerning the veil. Therefore, the Holy Qur'an has given further teachings in this regard, in addition to explaining the reasons and the wisdom behind these teachings and pointing out the benefits gained by following them. From the Holy Qur'an, we learn that the Islamic veil guards the moral and spiritual conditions of the individual, as well as the collective society. As mentioned earlier, these responsibilities of Muslim women, they are not just limited to being wives and mothers. The responsibilities of Muslim women, they are also to share with men the responsibility of maintenance of the moral and spiritual progress of the society. One of the methods to achieve this is the observance of the veil. So the veil in Islam is a complete style of life that regulates the way of dealing between men and women and ensures the protection of the standard of morality. As such, it is a set of injunctions that must be observed by both men and women. The Holy Qur'an has explained very clearly that the veil is not entirely the responsibility of women. There are also some obligations for Muslim men regarding the veil. For example, the same instructions directing Muslim women to restrain their eyes and guard their chastity were also addressed to men, as mentioned in the following two verses, where God says, "Say to the believing men that they restrain their eyes and guard their chastity. This is purer for them. Surely Allah is well aware of what they do." The same is said to women, "And say to the believing women that they restrain their eyes and guard their chastity." It is clear that both men and women share equally the responsibility of observing this injunction. They must both restrain their looks, or in other words, they must observe the veil of the eyes. This refutes the idea that Muslim women are told to cover their bodies because men cannot avoid looking at them. As we see from these two verses, restraining the eyes needs to be observed by both men and women alike. And if men act upon these injunctions and restrain their eyes, they will not be looking at women anyway, to even notice whether they are covered or not. Excuse me, I'll just have some water. So this means that covering the body has other benefits for the ladies themselves, as we will see later. In other verses, there are additional instructions for Muslim men. They are taught that they should not enter houses until permission is given, and that when they are in company of ladies, they should speak from behind a shroud of respect. This means that they must observe the veil of speech when talking to ladies. Again, similar instructions were given to Muslim women. Both men and women are to behave formally and decently when in each other's presence. But even while the observance of the veil is an injunction equally binding on men and women alike, the Muslim woman has some additional responsibilities. The Holy Qur'an teaches that she must not display her beauty and adornment, whether this is natural beauty or artificial in the form of makeup and accessories. Of course, this is not saying that Muslim women should look ugly or repulsive. What is meant here is that she should not come out in public with an inviting appearance that would attract eyes and incite desires and encourage actions. Sorry. She should not show interest in drawing attention to herself, whether by her dress or her makeup or her speech or her attitude or by any other means. This establishes the fact that Islam shelters women from being exploited as an object for carnal pleasure. The observance of this Islamic veil prevents women's exposure to this humiliating situation and protects them from being labeled as such. As some people will probably be aware, various feminist movements are trying to deal with these issues today, but they achieve very little success. The Holy Qur'an explains also that the Islamic veil protects women from being injured or harmed in any way. This is mentioned in the following verse. If you read this verse, we will see here the sentence that is nearer, that they may thus be distinguished and not molested. This is enlightening here. It shows that the reason for this Islamic dress code is primarily for the benefit of the individual woman herself. It explains that this attire is like a uniform that distinguishes her from others and indicates that she is one who should be left alone and not harmed or injured physically or mentally or emotionally. It is clear that these teachings are meant for the well-being of women and to remove any cause of inconvenience for them from its very roots. A woman who is observing the Islamic veil in her dress and actions is not likely to be treated in a disrespectful manner. Thus, the veil secures for Muslim women freedom from a lot of troubles that other women might face. It establishes the dignity and honor and well-being of women. It also gives women peace of mind. In addition to all that, the Islamic veil trains women to avoid the reliance on physical beauty as a mark for self-value or to gain self-confidence. This provides them with the opportunity to develop superior and advanced skills. Every woman is blessed with a great deal of potential talents and capabilities, but as a female, she also possesses the inherent instinct to desire to look beautiful and attractive. This instinct was implanted in women to help preserve the human species. As this natural desire distracts a woman from pursuing her other special talents, Islam has harnessed it by the use of the veil, which diverts her attention to her other abilities. As for these natural inclinations, marriage can fulfill these needs in an acceptable and legal manner. This liberates a woman to pursue her other potentials with ease and confidence. She then acquires new abilities and develops other skills. Her physical appearance becomes no longer the means by which she gains self-esteem or through which she achieves her goals in life, because her higher qualities gain precedence. By this, she can benefit herself and offer much more to others as well. So far from depriving women from their freedom or being a burden on women, observing the Islamic veil is a blessing for them and is the means by which they can obtain their freedom from the shackles that restrain their progress. Of course, the physical covering is only the first step to developing the true function of the veil, which is realized when the veil extends to the mind and heart, to shield one from impure and immoral thoughts. Therefore, in addition to one's words and actions, one's thoughts also will reflect reverence. This behavior leads to the individual's own moral uplift, and it also creates a decent atmosphere of respect that will benefit the moral state of the entire society. Yet someone might think here that there is no need for the bodily veil, and a lady can just be dressed in a decent manner and watch her behavior and actions to acquire the desired results. In answer to this, we must remember that what we said earlier, that physical actions affect the soul. This applies also to the bodily veil, which has its direct effect on the spiritual state. An example to support this is the fact that Muslims cover their bodies and heads when they offer their daily obligatory prayers, even if they are alone in a place where no other person can see them. This indicates that the physical covering acts as a protection from the negative influences that can affect one's concentration in prayers. So veiling the body can be considered symbolically to imply drawing a virtual mantle upon oneself for protection from all detrimental tendencies, whether spiritual or physical, that can hinder moral and spiritual advancement. Therefore, when a woman observes the physical veil, she secures her spiritual progress in addition to fulfilling her obligations towards the society. And also, it is worth mentioning here that nowadays, in the age of modern facilities of communication that can provide direct and immediate access to the whole world, the Islamic veil is very much needed as the means of protection against the dangers that result from dealing with strangers on networks. The same guidelines for the manners of dealing with outsiders can still be applied here, which proves that the teachings of Islam are suitable for all times and circumstances. The teachings of Islam indeed acknowledge that prevention is better than cure. This is the philosophy that underlines the Islamic regulations relating to the observance of the veil, which protects one from being confronted with situations that might incite risky tendencies, and hence it prevents the development of situations which can go out of control and can cause moral stumbling. In this way, ethical values can be preserved and the society is safeguarded against many types of ailments. On the individual level, whether male or female, observing the veil shields the mind from impure thoughts and liberates the heart from unhealthy inclinations and guards the moral condition, helping the spiritual progress that fulfills one purpose of existence. The few examples that were presented here provide just a glimpse of what Islam has granted to women. The real effect of these teachings can be witnessed when they are put into practice. This first happened at the time of early Islam. After the revelation of the Holy Qur'an, the very same vulnerable ladies who were helplessly spending their worthless lives at the mercy of cruel and oppressive males rose to become the most motivated and influential women that history has witnessed. Some of them surpassed even men in bravery and courage. They excelled in knowledge and outshone in spiritual progress. Despite the power and authority that Islam granted them, they preserved and maintained their modesty and tenderness, their hearts being filled with the love and compassion to mankind and all creation of their beloved Creator. The reason, of course, was that they were being escorted by a unique leader, the Holy Prophet of Islam, peace and blessings of God be upon him, who was described in the Holy Qur'an as a mercy for mankind, and who was sent by the most gracious and ever merciful Creator of the universe. He reflected in his person the Creator's attributes of love and benevolence to the highest level that is humanly possible. Thus, he taught these ladies how to be ideal human beings, having the capacity of reflecting the beautiful attributes of their Creator, whose mercy encompasses all things. These ladies enjoyed the certainty that the teachings of Islam comprise the means by which mankind can establish the living relationship with the Creator of the universe. They were confident that following this guidance was to secure an everlasting blissful life for all human souls after departing from this world. For this reason, they did not hesitate to present any sacrifice to protect the infant religion and preserve the perfect message that was sent to guide mankind for all times to come. As a result of their selfless sacrifices and bravery, they paved the way for the generations of ladies that came after them and secured for them the means of a respectable, honorable life. They taught them how to fulfill the purpose of existence as females in this world, and how to attain to the loftiest spiritual ranks and enjoy the everlasting inner peace in this life and the life to come. Females who lived on earth after their time owe a great deal to these ladies and to the honorable leader who initiated this transformation in their lives. If the teachings of this prophet conveyed any oppression, if he was himself an oppressor of women in any way, then how could such ladies, who were his sincere followers, attain to the eminent positions that they enjoyed? Why should his first wife, As-Sayyida Khadija, may Allah be pleased with her, support him and value his noble qualities and become the first among mankind to believe in his truth as the messenger of God? And why would a lady like Sumayya Ammar, may Allah be pleased with her, readily accept to be brutally killed by one of his opponents rather than abandoning the beliefs that he taught, thus becoming the first martyr in the history of Islam? And why would his youngest wife, As-Sayyida Aisha, may Allah be pleased with her, propagate his teachings by educating his followers after his departure from this world, to become the teacher of generations of men as well as women? These are not the actions of oppressed women. These ladies who met him and who witnessed the blessed time of his existence on earth, sacrificed all what they could and laid down their lives to protect his holy person. This is because they realized the uniqueness of his honorable personality and qualities, and they recognized the brilliance and beauty of his teachings and appreciated the greatness and grandeur of his message, that was to secure justice and peace for the ladies of all times to come. As a result of abiding by the teachings he conveyed, they attained their lofty ranks and inspired generations that came after them, even through our present time. May the peace and blessings of God be on him and his true followers eternally. At the end, I thank you all for all your attention and patience. And now, if you have any questions, I think we have a question-answer session after that.
Our first question, please.
First, I'd like to say thank you for such an amazing talk. It was very inspirational. I wanted to ask your view on Amina Wadud, the feminist leader who gave Friday prayers in America. What is your view on females as imams?
As imams?
Yeah.
I'll come to the close to the microphone. Well, the thing is, from a religious point of view, ladies can, like for example, in the worldly positions, they can take the leadership as, like they can lead and become a manager at work. They can, like teach others. They can take over the managing sort of role. But from the religious point of view, it is a bit tricky, because religion is something that it needs certain things to be done, like for example, as you said, the lady imam, she needs to have this role all the time. If she's the imam, then she has to lead the prayers all the time, for example. This is her position. So there are some, for example, some times in the month that she cannot pray. This is not right, like she will have to excuse herself every few weeks, and this will be embarrassing for her as well. So the leadership in prayers, especially in prayers, is not, this is one of the reasons why it is not approved by Islam for a woman to lead the prayers. And also even the position of prayers, it is usually known that Muslims prostrate, for example, in the prayers. It doesn't feel right that a woman is prostrating and some people from behind, men, are watching her prostrating. It's just natural, common sense. This is why Islam does not allow a woman to be an imam, for example. But Islam does not stop a woman from being like a head of some organization, in her work, in anything, and we have these examples, and there is nothing wrong with it. Okay.
Question about that?
I know that in Islam teaches a non-violent and rational approach to domestic affairs. I was just wondering why it's prescribed for men to the act of nushuz, but it's not prescribed for women. I just wanted to know why.
I can't hear.
What was the last part of that?
If a woman is out of line, there's the practice of nushuz, which is prescribed in Islam, but it's not prescribed for women if the man is out of line. So I just wanted to clarify why.
Did you hear what I didn't understand? Nushuz.
Is that the
It's like when he can
physical admonition?
The beating, you are talking about
gently,
beating.
kind of he can grip her gently,
So,
if she's out of line.
so the question is, for the sake of the video, I'll just repeat the question. The question is, why is physical admonition allowed? The question was asking, saying that physical admonition is allowed in Islam, in Qur'an, for men with women, but not the other way around. Could the questioner elaborate? Could the answer?
Well, actually I have my own understanding of this verse, if you like. The word which is beating. Actually, I had it here. I think I had it. Yeah. The word beating, the word which is daraba in the Holy Quran, it's mentioned about this verse you are talking about. I have checked this verse in this word, the use of this word in the Holy Quran, and it was mentioned 58 times. None of these 58 times is translated or understood as physical beating, bodily beating, except the verse which is talking about the women as the one you have mentioned. The other words, they are used in the Holy Quran, as I said, 58 times. They are used in different meanings. So for me personally, I don't believe that the Quran says that men should beat women physically. Because in my own point of view, if anything was to be done, the Holy Prophet of Islam, peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, should have done it himself to give an example to the others how to do this thing. So we don't have any narration about the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam that he has beaten anybody, any woman or a girl or even a child. He never used the physical beating in his life. So in my view, the beating here, the word daraba, does not mean physical beating. It means a sort of like doing something which will bring about an effect to the wife, that she has done something very big or something very bad. Not by physical beating, but by other means. You know, like if you want to, and this is not wrong, if you want to, even a child, if you want to make a child understand something, you can make a punishment or some sort of, you deprive the child of something to bring home to that child that this is something which is very bad, that he has done something very bad, and this brings to mind that to the child that he has done something wrong, and then he can rectify for it. And the same is for women. The husband is allowed to make a woman aware that she has done something very bad. But on saying this also, the verse you mentioned is talking about nushuz. And the word nushuz here is not like any mistake or any small thing that a wife does. Nushuz means that a woman acts outside you know, like she acts as if she's not a woman. She takes over, she becomes very aggressive, that she loses her female sort of decency, you know, like a female is soft, a female is nice and loving, and if a female is acting in a way that is very aggressive, she loses this femininity in her. And this is what the Quran says here. Only then the man, the husband, should bring this to her attention by doing something that will shake her, you know, like when you shake someone by an action or by a word, that this person comes back to his senses again. but not by beating. I don't believe in beating. Is this answering your question? Or did you have anything in mind, any other thing or what?
Yeah, that's.
Any follow-up questions for that, or a different question altogether?
Sorry, can I ask another question? I know you said hijab is more just than a piece of clothes on our heads, with the way we behave, our attitudes, our minds, thoughts, and so forth. And we have, well, Muslim women have a guidance on how they should wear hijab. They choose, either cover a veil or a cover. But what is a hijab for a man? What is there a particular part of their body that men should cover?
Oh yes, of course. The men should also be decently wearing clothes in a decent way. They have some parts of their bodies they have to be covered also. But the main thing, the woman is always the attractive side. Like men, even if part of their bodies are shown, like their arms or something, they are not sort of attractive, this attractive. But women are created by God to be the attractive side, the attractive one. So this is why the women are the ones who are supposed to cover more, not only because of their attraction, it's also for the woman's sake herself. Because it is in the nature of woman that she wants to look beautiful and attractive. And if she feels this, if she's given this to go out in this way, to look very attractive, she will forget her own self, she will forget other abilities in herself as well, and she will just concentrate on her beauty. And this is the nature of woman. So this is why God has made this like to stop women from concentrating on their beauties this much, because it can go out of control. So, but men don't need this. Men, even if they don't have this in their nature as women are. But again, they have some parts of their bodies that has to be covered. And of course, as I mentioned, that there are the hijab is not only the dress. It is so, it concentrates more on the behavior, on the actions, on the talking, on everything else. So the clothes are only a little part of the hijab. But because it is the thing which is shown, which people can see, so people concentrate only on the dress. It's not only the dress, it's a whole way of living, for men and for women alike.
So are men allowed to go to the beach without a top? Would that be considered as Islamic code for them to dress that way?
Without a top, yes, but they have to cover the lower part of their bodies, up to the knees. This is some part that they have to cover. Because as I said, they are not, they don't have this attraction in their nature as women have.
For the next few questions, I think we'll try and repeat them from the camera.
Okay.
Yes.
First of all, I'd like to thank you again. I think you very beautifully elaborated the status of women in Islam. I'd like to follow up on a question that was asked earlier about women leading in Islam and leading their prayer. If there's a woman's event, say, and there's only females in that event, is a woman allowed to lead the namaz then, or does she still have to read namaz before a man?
If they are only women, well, usually yes, the woman is allowed to, because if she's leading the prayers between women only, then the reasons I just mentioned, they don't apply. Because if the woman is with women, there is no problem. And she's not like the allocated imam as well. It's like if there is a gathering of women, they can choose one of them to be leading the prayer. But she's not allocated. She's not like the person who's always leading the prayer, like the imam, or the male imam. And again, if there is prostration or anything, they are all women. So we don't find this reason for not allowing it between women.
So that question was on in an all-women's event, is it okay that a woman is the imam? Any other questions? Yes, Dabbous.
Thank you for that excellent talk. Just had a very quick question. I think it was Surah Nisa, the 4th verse, which was about the orphans and the Holy Quran saying, if you're not able to do justice to the orphans. So what does not being able to do justice to the orphans mean? Does it apply to a particular person, or is it talking to the society as a whole, that if you're not able to look after the orphans and the yatama?
Well, I think the justice here is not to the orphans only. It is, as I said, the orphans can be the ladies who are not married.
Yes.
And justice here, because from the justice of the community or the society, is that every person has a right for certain rights. And Islam here is talking about the rights of women to have a family life. And if there is not enough men in the society to provide this family life, then this becomes injustice for women. This is how I see the verse. So injustice here means that there is no justice for some women who live without a family life. So when there is justice, then there will be equality. All the women in the community will be provided with family life. Then this is justice. Injustice is that some people have and some people do not have. But if they all have something, this is the justice. Or at least they have the choice. You know, maybe some lady doesn't want marriage, she doesn't want a family life, but at least the option will be for her, that she has the option and she doesn't choose it. So this is justice here.
And if there are more men than women, is it possible for a woman to have more than one husband?
No, because usually what it is mentioned here, that a man is not emotionally affected like women in these things. Like if a woman is without a family life, she will be emotionally disturbed. Because she is, the women are very delicate in their emotions. Men are not emotional like women. And men can live, they can manage their lives without family, they will be all right. But women without families, they have this sort of feeling inside them that something is missing. Because this is the nature of a woman. A woman is very homely, she likes the home, she likes the family, she likes to have children, she likes this way of life. But men can live without this, although it is also, Islam doesn't say that men should be without marriage. But in the traditional way also, men can go and marry easily. But a woman, when a woman starts to look for a husband, she's looked down upon, you know, like people will look negatively to a woman who's trying to find a husband for herself. So this is why Islam is providing the husbands for women without them having to fight for it or ask for it. Because women are sort of shy and their nature is different. So I don't think ever that there is a situation, we don't know this, that there was a situation that men were there and they couldn't find wives. It is always the other way around. Women are there and they wouldn't find husbands. So I don't see any wider reason for this. And of course, from the practical side also, a woman, if she has more than one husband, it will have its own problems. Like if there are children, for example, who will be the father? But on the other side, if a man is married to a certain number of 2 or 3 wives, the children will be known to whom they belong. So this is something also which in practice it doesn't work. But I see it also from the emotional, it is more from the emotional side, that women are, the Qur'an, the Holy Qur'an is providing this right for women. It's a right, it's not like a favor from men, it's the right of women to have family lives, because the woman needs this, she has this emotional need in her nature, not for men, but only for women.
So just, as was probably very evident from the answer, the question there was asking if there is an imbalance in society numerically where there are many more men than women, can the women take more than one husband? Any other questions? Yes, at the back there.
In countries where the hijab and the veil are legally banned, how should Muslim women in those countries show loyalty to their nation at the same time as following their religion?
So the question is, in countries where the hijab is banned, how can women, Muslim women in those nations, show loyalty to their nation as well as to their religion?
The hijab, I don't think it's banned in any countries. It is the covering of the face which is banned, but the hijab itself, I don't think it was banned. Do you know of any country which banned the hijab? Not because I know the face, the covering of the face is banned in some countries, which is not a must in Islam. Islam doesn't say that the whole face has to be covered, but the hijab is not banned, and if it's banned, in this case, a Muslim woman is bound to follow her religion, not the laws of the country, because as long as the country, the law of the country does not contradict with Islamic teachings, then it is alright. But if there is a contradiction between the laws of the country and the Islamic teachings, then a Muslim is bound to follow the Islamic teachings. And if there is any problem, there is a verse in the Holy Qur'an which says that if you find this difficult to follow your religious teachings, then leave this place. And this is what happened in the time of the Holy Prophet, peace be on him, that when they found that they cannot act upon their teachings properly, they had to leave Mecca and they went to another place. It is not allowed to fight or to do any, take any action in your hands, but you follow your teachings. If there is any problem in this, then you are allowed to leave the place.
So if a woman normally covers her face and then the country that she lives in has banned that, should she stop covering?
Well, it is, this is what I'm saying, it is not like a must because the hadith says that the face of woman is allowed to be seen. And even like in prayers, in Hajj, for example, the face of the woman it has to be uncovered. If a woman wants to cover her face, this is her own option, you know, like it's her own decision. If she finds that it is banned in one of the countries, she can either leave the country or try to talk about it. But Islam, this is the beauty of Islam, that the teachings of Islam, they are always very reasonable and acceptable by all the laws of all the countries. You can't find that any law in any country contradicts with the teachings of Islam. But if anybody wants to do more than that, it is their own choice to do it. If they can't do it, then they can leave the place. They can. It's up to them. It's their choice. But I'm talking about the original teachings of Islam, that they have to be given priority. If the law of the country, like for example in countries like Pakistan, for example, they ban some Ahmadis from doing some sort of saying salam or doing their prayers or doing azan. In this case, the Muslim has to do what he is supposed to do. He doesn't have to follow the laws of the country, because the law of the country is contradicting the teachings of Islam. So in this case, the Muslim is allowed not to follow the laws of that country. The priority is for the teachings of Islam. Okay.
Any further questions? Yes, at the back.
As you just mentioned about Hajj and not covering your face, is there a reason why people don't, well, you're not meant to cover your face during Hajj, but in their day-to-day lives people tend to, some women choose to actually cover their faces?
The question there was, is there a reason why in Hajj women are told not to cover their face, but in day-to-day lives some women may choose to?
The thing is that covering in Islam, in the teachings of Islam, the face is not part of the hijab. If you want to cover your face, this is your own choice. And usually the face is needed to be covered only if the lady is wearing makeup. If she has makeup on, then she should cover her face. So this is an option. If a woman wants to not to cover her face, she can just go out without makeup, and this will be alright for her. But the covering of the face is like an extra thing that this is an option for a woman. And she has the choice to do it or not to do it, provided that she's not having makeup. If she has makeup, she has to cover, because the Qur'an says cover everything that is, like the beautifying, anything beautifying for beautifying purposes is to be covered.
Yes, question.
I wanted to ask by a specific verse in the Quran which says that your women are like itself for you, so do to yourself as you like. I wanted to ask to elaborate on that, what that actually means, in what context.
So the question is asked about the verse which says in her notes, the woman is like a tilth, and what was the rest of the verse?
As you like.
Sorry?
So do to yourself as you like.
So do to your tilth as you wish.
Okay, this is mentioning it is giving the symbolic meaning of marriage, that marriage is some between male and female. It's for having children. It's talking about having children, having the fruits of the marriage, and this verse is like talking about a man and women in the way. That if you think about a farmer and he's sowing his land and then the land gives good fruits. So this is the way that people should think about marriage, that if you have the right seed and the right land, you will get good fruits. So it's mentioning here that women, men and women should be, should come together in marriage by good choice. Choose the good. If you want a good fruit, you have to choose a good land, and if you want good life and good fruits from your marriage, then choose a good wife. This is talking about the quality of the wife. It is not like some people take this negatively, that it is like a woman is just under, like the marriage is like the man does whatever he wants for his wife. It's not like that. It is saying that choose your wife as the farmer chooses his land, and it's both ways. Also for the wife, she has to choose a husband who is like the good seed, the good quality, so that when they come together, they will have good fruits of that marriage. Not only children, but the fruits of the marriage will be good also, everything. It's not saying here that, as some people say, that it is like do with your wife whatever you like. It is not like that, because it contradicts other verses of the Holy Quran. When we want to understand one verse, we have to read all the verses, not only one. Because if we read one on its own, we might understand it in a way, and the other in a different way, and the third in a third way. But the rule is that nothing should contradict the other in the Holy Quran. So if we take it in a negative way, that the man can do whatever he likes for his wife, then it is contradicting the other verses which give the wife certain rights and some limits for the man as well. Okay?
Question at the back there.
In Islam, the inheritance for sons is a bit more than daughters, and I was just wondering if a Muslim woman wanted to give it equally to her children, is that fine?
So the question is asking, in Islam, the inheritance for a son is more than a daughter. If a Muslim woman wants to give the inheritance equally, is that permissible?
You mean she herself gives the shares?
Yeah, she wants to distribute it equally.
Well, if there is a reason for this, it is, like she can do it. But in my opinion, if God Himself put some rules, it is there are a lot of wisdoms in everything God has chosen for us. And if God has given some shares for certain people, certain children or brothers or fathers or anything, I think it is, if the person is really a believer in God, that He is the one who knows better than anyone else, then we should stick to the shares which are given by God, to stick to the division that God has given. There are only some cases when, for example, if people are living in a country where the inheritance is different from the teachings of the Quran, like the shares are different, then in this case people can give some wills in their wills to put the proper portions, the proper distribution according to the Holy Quran. This is the right act to be done, because in this case the person is trying to apply the Holy Quran in a country which does not apply this rule or these shares like the shares of the Holy Quran. In this case only I would think it is right, but it doesn't feel right that God said something and we decide something else, except of course if there is some good reason for this, like there is some practical reason for the changing this distribution. Right?
As we're coming to close the event soon, I'm just wondering, that raises an interesting question. Could perhaps there be some short elaboration, especially for people in video, on why the sons may be given more inheritance than the daughters?
This is normal because, as I mentioned, that the women in Islam, women are not supposed to be contributing financially to in any way. Like in the family, financial needs are to be supplied by the father, the males in general, the father, the brother, the males of the family. They have to look after the financial needs of the family. So a woman is not supposed to worry about any financial needs for her, even for herself or for the family. So in this case, the inheritance, if whatever share the woman gets, this is hers. She can do whatever she likes with it. But in the case of the male, whatever he inherits is not his. It is for him and for all the females whom he is supposed to look after. So in this case, actually it is, in my opinion, it is in the favor of women, because whatever the women will get is theirs, but whatever the men will get, they will share it with the females. So in this way, you can see that the females are the winners in this deal. So whatever share, it's not always the half, it's only for the children that the females take half the share of the males. But in other distributions, like in I think the mother and father, there are some other rules in this in the inheritance that males and females share the same share as well. I think the mother and father, they have some share, the same share in some circumstances. So I don't see anything wrong in this. I see it actually for the men. The men have to worry because their share is not theirs.
Question here.
I have a question regarding female missionaries. As we know, Ahmadi missionaries, they go through strenuous mental and physical training to become devotees for Islam. What is how are women allowed to devote their life to Islam? Are they allowed to go to remote villages and preach Islam? And to what extent are they allowed to be missionaries towards their religion?
So the question is, to what extent are women allowed to be missionaries and devote their lives to the cause of Islam?
Missionaries, it's actually a very difficult job. It is a very risky job as well, because like in circumstances when people are trying to preach a religion, they are always having some negative effects, some negative people trying to oppose them, some people try to abuse them, and it is not right for women to be put in this position. But saying this, the best person to preach for women is a woman. So, and women don't usually get very aggressive like men when it comes to preaching. So women can go and preach to women, not men. Men it's out of question. And of course there are some limits for women also because of the traveling, because of the hardship in all this. So it is allowed, but in a certain limit, not like men. And considering